Hello and welcome to Economic Forum, a weekly program that covers all economic-related issues. My name is Tawanda Gudlanga. This week we are focusing on the role of the youth in socio-economic development. No doubt every nation banks on its youth to bring out ideas that will solve today and tomorrow's problems. As tomorrow's leaders, youths need to equip themselves with leadership skills acquired through advanced education. To achieve this goal, a young people-driven organization recently came up with the School's Business Case Competition, a platform for high school students, government, and the private sector to come up with ideas to solve challenges affecting Zimbabwe. Through this initiative, students had an opportunity to present a real-life case affecting Zimbabwe, whose theme was the adoption of cashless transactions and payments in Zimbabwe.
The entire nation can now see what is happening, the relationship between the real business world, our academic institutions. You are part and parcel of that long marathon, and it starts with education. You are part of the real business community or world within our own nation. We have peculiar opportunities, equally challenges. You are today's students. In 10 years or so, some of you will be parents. As such, you have to have some qualities. You cannot be divorced from what is happening within the commercial, within our economic world. Today we talk of bond notes. They were never there 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. But they are real. They are part and parcel of the Zimbabwean economic cycle as we speak. So you are not going to wait to read, to learn about bond notes, about Zim asset, about the 10-point plan then. No, it's part and parcel of what you are doing. You are products. Your fees is coming from an economic background which is practicing what I've just said. You are a mirror of what I believe is the entire nation. We want that vocabulary, which is not written in our textbooks, but is floating around. It's fact, it's real. I want you to grasp it, understand it, and share it, and cross-pollinate for the good of our economy. Among you, there's a leadership crop. Our teachers, our academic staff, medical, engineering, even politicians, they are going to come from you. You are the answer to Zimbabwean problems.
The presentation will be on. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has tasked your team to develop a 3-year strategic plan to get Zimbabweans in rural and remote locations to fully adopt cashless transactions. Your strategic plan should focus on the below rural target market segments: laborers, peasant farmers, cross-border traders, small and medium-scale businesses, and merchants.
Zimbabwe is a landlocked country with a population of approximately 30 million people, with 80% of them living in the rural areas. Our Zimbabwe has suffered hyperinflation, multi-currency shocks, and here we are now, being affected by cash shortages, causing cash flow imbalances. To start with, inflation, as it is a major contributing factor to our current problem today, cash shortages. In Zimbabwe, the inflation rate measures a broad rise or fall in prices that consumers pay for basic basket goods. October 2016, we saw a negative balance of minus 1.6% in the inflation rate. April 2017, there was a sharp increase to 0.48%, a positive balance. Where is this taking us? Zimbabwe's consumer prices increased by 0.48% year on year in April 2017 from a 0.21% gain in March. On a monthly basis, the consumer prices rose by 0.05% after increasing 0.03% in March on a monthly basis. Now people need the money to be able to purchase these goods on a day-to-day basis. Prices keep increasing anonymously, yet hardcore cash is hard to come by, bringing us to the current situation where we have a nation with very little physical cash. Our economists say that our gross domestic products amount to $14.42 million US, yet we have a debt to our gross domestic produce at 76.9%. Queues at banks that had disappeared have since resurfaced, with members of the public spending more than half the day waiting to withdraw money or make deposit in their banking halls. Nearly everyone needs cash, from schools, landlords, service providers, peasant farmers. Henceforth, the need to act fast and think outside the box. Constant communication using various information communication technology platforms are of paramount importance in order to allay fears and mistrust in whatever systems are put in place. Calls have been made for people to start using plastic money. It must be understood that not all people have access to such services. Although some service providers can handle transactions through cashless means, a large number of them are not amenable for reasons best known to themselves.
Our mission is to educate people in Zimbabwe and encourage them to adopt to the use of cashless transactions. Now, our target groups are our laborers. These we have defined as our farm workers. We have our peasant farmers. These are the owners of small farms. We have our merchants. These refer to groups or individuals supplying merchandise to a particular trade. Then you have the small and micro enterprises. These are non-subsidiary firms operating at a small scale. Then lastly, we have our cross-border traders. These are people who mainly operate between Zimbabwe, Botswana, and South Africa. These are Zimbabweans who leave the country, go outside to buy goods in bulk, and come to sell them here at a cheaper price. Now, what is the effect of cash shortages on these people? We looked at our cash border traders. They complained about the high duty levy that they have to pay at the border, on top of the high transport costs that it costs them to get outside the country. Now, given a maximum withdrawal limit at the bank of $50, they are forced to either get themselves in debt by borrowing money from people or to cancel their whole trip. And this in turn is affecting their business. On their journey between Zimbabwe and South Africa, some of their money is stolen. We are saying with the introduction of mobile banking, their money will be secured. And in the event that they lose their mobile funds, they can freeze their accounts so that no further transactions will be made without their knowledge. Then we looked at our SMEs. They are complaining about the shortages of the US dollar. Due to that, we have foreign investors pulling out of their businesses because they do not want to be associated with the bond notes. We are saying that with the introduction of cashless transactions, the tag of the currency will not be seen. But what matters is the value of the figure in your account. When you look at our merchants, they are complaining that their services are being exchanged for other goods. As the common joke last holiday, which said, when our Minister of Education was misquoted and people are now saying that we can pay school fees using gods, we come here together as a team today saying, instead of using a proper god to pay your school fees, you can now use the mbudzi to pay your school fees. Now today, to explain cash liquidity, I have come up with what I have termed the cycle of money. On a Monday morning, we have our consumer, a regular individual citizen of Zimbabwe. She goes to the bank to withdraw $1. When they get home, they discover they need to buy bread. They go to the supermarket with that $1 and buy bread. Now, when the owner of the supermarket is buying his stock, he goes to the wholesaler with that money and buys his stock. At the end of the day, we have our wholesaler taking all of his earnings and depositing them to the bank. Tuesday morning, our consumer goes back to withdraw that money. On a normal basis, ladies and gentlemen, that is how money should flow. But now our problem in Zimbabwe is we have our consumers going to the bank on a Monday to withdraw that money. They get home, they sit on it. We have our supermarket not getting money, our wholesaler not getting money, and our bank not getting money. Now our consumer goes back to the bank on Tuesday, hoping to withdraw money. Then the bank faces cash shortages. Once the banks face cash shortages, they turn to RBZ. RBZ is forced to print more money. Now, when more money is printed, the value of the currency decreases. Hence, we face inflation. With the introduction of cashless transactions, drawing all our peasant farmers, laborers, farm workers, merchants, SMEs, and cross-border traders into the banking sector is a way of incorporating them into the formal sector. Once we have a greater population of Zimbabweans under the formal sector, the national gross domestic product will show a good rise.
For more ideas proffered by the youths on the current cash crisis, join us in the second segment of Economic Forum. Welcome back to Economic Forum. We are in Chishawasha this week where students are presenting to the business community and government on their ideas to solve the current cash crisis. The topic is the adoption of cashless transactions and payments in Zimbabwe. Let's hear more from them.
Millions of Africans are scratching out a living in the informal sector, representing about 41% of the GDP in most parts of the continent, thus leaving them unprotected and without pathways to financial stability and wealth creation. Moving towards a cashless society would force citizens, companies, and policymakers to bring all Africans to the financial sector, drastically improving the lives of millions who are now under and unbanked. It would also bring many livelihoods to the formal economy, a major economic opportunity for all Africans. What small businesses and micro-enterprises need is fresh capital to create employment and expand the economic pie. And bank accounts connected to economic activity will ensure that even the people selling goods by the roadside secure a piece of this pie. The advantages of banking are interest accumulates, banks will loan you money, credit is built, and it is the safest way to save your money.
As a team, we sat and came up with a plan. Our plan is going to be divided into 4 parts. And the parts include educate, demonstrate, participate, and implement. The method that we saw convenient and practical and hope to become popular in remote and rural areas in Zimbabwe will be the Unstructured Supplementary Savings Data, the USSD. The USSD is currently being practiced in India as we speak today. Our first step is to educate. Technology illiterate Zimbabwe make up 20 to 29% of the population, meaning it is important to first educate these people before we demonstrate, participate, or even implement. We're going to attack the youths. By this I mean, our first targets are going to be the university students. The youths are very enthusiastic when it comes to new ideas.
Once the students have developed an interest and want in using the USSD method, the students will demonstrate how it works and how it is done. But first and foremost, they will have to open a bank account at their nearest bank site. And when they have created an account, they will receive a personal PIN code that will enable them to do all their transactions. Now that the bank account and PIN code have been established, they will be shown how the USSD works in their areas. They will start with their families and their friends, then teach the influential people, being the headmasters who will end up teaching the teachers, being the headmen who will teach the community, and being the workers and the laborers. The third step is to participate. Having fully learned the method and are able to use it independently, the headmen will go back to the community and start teaching the people there how and why they should use it. We have chosen the headmen rather than the students to educate the communities living in the respective remote rural areas. This is because people tend to listen more and give consideration to anything taught to them by someone living their kind of lifestyle. Our fourth step, and final, is to implement. In order to help the headmen and stir up excitement towards the USSD, we will be having campaigns, showcasing adverts, giving out t-shirts, passing out flyers, and our best promotion, giving out phones, where one could win a phone just for conducting a certain number of transactions per day using the USSD. By doing this, everyone in the provinces will fully adopt this method and will eventually spread the word to everyone countrywide. If we can do this in just 3 years in 3 provinces, you can guess what kind of a society we will have in the next 10 years. You guessed right, a cashless Zimbabwean society.
From the St. Ignatius College presentation, we learned that government must intensify its national financial inclusion initiatives for people to have confidence in the banking sector.
The main problem that we're going to face, ladies and gentlemen, is resistance and reluctance. If we take a look at it, most people in the remote and rural areas they still have the impression that the RBZ is what I would term as thieves after the 2008-2009 situation of hyperinflation, ladies and gentlemen. After most people
Bank accounts were washed down to a zero, ladies and gentlemen. With 60% of Zimbabwe in the rural areas, ladies and gentlemen, and that is an approximate of about 10 million people in Zimbabwe who are residing in the rural and remote areas. How are we going to make them trust us, and how are we going to let them have to be a part of this cashless mobile banking, ladies and gentlemen?
We're saying the mobile banking platforms are already there. The point of sale facilities are already there. The problem is, why aren't people using them? Now what we're saying is, these people don't trust the system, they don't trust us. So what should we do? So the first thing we'll do is awareness. What we'll do, we'll take those community leaders in those rural areas, those headmen, those chiefs, those community leaders who are above the people and who know the people. Then we'll take them and we'll educate them on the various issues. We'll tell them the truth. That in 2008, we had a currency of our own. It was devalued, hyperinflation. Today, it's not our currency. The chances of the US dollar being valueless the same way as the Zim dollar are virtually non-existent. We'll tell them all this information so that they can go and spread it in the rural areas, so they can get the people there to trust us again.
We all are talking about mobile banking. We're talking about adopting the USSD, ladies and gentlemen. There is the problem of cell phones, ladies and gentlemen. Zimbabwe has got an estimate of 4% of the population without cell phones, ladies and gentlemen. How are we going to get them to have mobile cell phones if they are going to have to adopt the mobile banking system, ladies and gentlemen? In trying to adopt the cell phone as well, they do not have chargers, ladies and gentlemen. In rural and remote areas, there is a shortage of electricity. How are they going to have to charge their cell phones when they do not have electricity? Not all of us in Zimbabwe, ladies and gentlemen, are literate. We might say that most people, maybe the young generation, is literate, ladies and gentlemen. But then if we take a look at it, most people in the older generation, in the remote areas, ladies and gentlemen, cannot even write R, A, E, or U. How are they going to use a mobile cell phone when they cannot even read and write, ladies and gentlemen?
As we all know, it is common knowledge that the further away you get from a point of commerce, a city, or a township, the weaker your network coverage or signal strength gets. Why is this? It's simply because of the base stations. Currently, service providers, they happen to install new base stations, or boosters as they are commonly known, every single year. Their rollout is immense. But the problem that they face is that in areas such as rural and remote areas, they find that there is no business. Hence, what we're saying is that by happening to initiate this project of ours, we are now giving them a customer base. Hence, they can now start to install these same base stations in all of these districts which will happen to be servicing. And by installing these base stations, that then means that the network is then easier for us to what? To also use these mobile banking services. Also, in the installation of these base stations, we'll also be creating employment for these laborers, these peasant farmers on the side. Hence, they can also finance the purchase of their mobiles. That is in the case of those without phones.
Sessions on mentorship are critical for Zimbabwe's socio-economic transformation, as we are witnessing at this business case competition. Join us in the third and final segment here on Economic Forum. Welcome to the third and final segment on Economic Forum, where we are looking at youth-driven initiatives to equip students with business and leadership skills with the engagement of government and the private sector. Project leader Farai Mshawasha says his organization is committed to equipping students with life skills.
The school's business case concept, it's mainly driven by the idea of trying to nurture students to present real life case scenarios, and for them to be able to articulate them clearly and also contribute something very positively to their economy and the development of the country. We find out there is enough space for dialogue to also include students who are in high school, and this event from today actually showcased that they're actually capable of doing it, and capable of doing it very, very well.
What I really learned about this discussion about introducing a cashless society is that we can adopt many other methods, inclusive of the USSD, which was mentioned by our competitors, the St. Dominic's, and also putting major things in place to go along with mobile banking in order to curb these problems. And it was quite an interesting and vibrant discussion. And I should say that as a commercial student, I managed to acquire a lot of information pertaining how we could curb this problem as the young youths.
As the youth of Zimbabwe, we need to come together as one in order to improve our country as a whole. As clearly seen by what was happening in the whole, many people have ideas but lacking exposure on how to do what we have in mind. But if we come together as one and put our ideas at one place, we can truly make Zimbabwe a better nation.
I benefited a lot from this presentation because when we're doing the research, we came through a lot of information, things that we didn't know before, and we realized that we can take those things and put them to use, and they can help us be better people in life as we are the future leaders of Zimbabwe.
People are reluctant and ignorant, therefore there's need to educate them and implement how we can manage a cashless society.
As a young Zimbabwean, I should be keen on knowing the current affairs of Zimbabwe, and we should be able to know that we are the future Zimbabweans.
We're having a discussion on cashless transactions, and I think that if Zimbabwe is to adopt this, it will really help the economy, because as it stands, people have cash shortages.
As a new generation, we should come up with new ideas on how to deal with the problems in our society. For example, improving our technology. As Zimbabwe is a developing country, we need to research and use the help of other countries.
Such discussions like the business case that we had are very important to me because they give us first-hand insight. We get to think the way business people think. We get to come up with solutions the way business people get to come up with solutions. And it's such a great opportunity for us to do something like this.
I've accepted the invitation to come here and be a judge as a way of giving back to the society, trying to do my part in grooming the youngsters who are also upcoming to become better, better equipped even for them when they leave school. A lot of research was put into this. There's a lot of confidence in even the deportment of the students. It's amazing.
We have got to be in the same mode as a nation. Our students, our tertiary education institutions, ourselves in commerce today, we must speak the same language. The vocabulary which is now apparent within our nation, the 10-point plan, Zim asset, the bond note, plastic money, we must all understand that vocabulary. From cabinet level right up to the students, they must understand it. It's that vision, a common vision, maintained, executed by His Excellency. If we understand it, then as a nation we are progressing.
It is a fact that Zimbabwe's future is inseparable from its young people. Therefore, the active participation of young people in decision-making processes will go a long way in enhancing their knowledge and skills, thereby transforming Zimbabwe and Africa as a whole for the better. We hope you managed to pick some beneficial ideas from the future leaders of Zimbabwe. That's all we had for you on this edition of our Economic Forum. My name is Tawanda Gudlanga. Until we meet again next time, it's pleasant viewing.